Good evening, and welcome to Election Night in America 2024, where Vice President Kamala Harris will take on former President Donald Trump. After a hard-fought campaign, it's all come down to tonight, where voters will cast their ballots to elect the 47th President of the United States. It is now 7 p.m. on the East Coast, and voting has ended in the states of Georgia, Indiana, Kentucky, South Carolina, Virginia, and Vermont. We await our first results from this election. In Georgia, Donald Trump is the projected winner of the state's 16 electoral votes. This is a big victory for the former president. It's a state that he lost in the last election, but today he's on track to flip Georgia back and win it by just under a 2-point margin. The peach state will go red once again. Next up in Indiana, this is former Vice President Mike Pence's home state. Even without Pence on the ticket with them anymore, Donald Trump is once again the projected winner in Indiana, winning its 11 electoral votes. He'll also carry Kentucky and the state's 8 electoral votes, as well as South Carolina, winning its 9 electoral votes. However, in Virginia, we have our first ever victory for Kamala Harris, 13 electoral votes going to the vice president. She's going to win the state by just under a 2-point margin, despite Joe Biden having won the state by a double-digit margin 4 years ago. And finally, in Vermont, Kamala Harris once again is the projected winner of the state's 3 electoral votes. And so after the first poll closings of the night, Trump takes an early lead with 44 electoral votes to Kamala Harris's 16. It is now 7:30 here on the East Coast, with polls now closing in North Carolina, Ohio, and West Virginia. Starting off in North Carolina, we can project that Donald Trump is on track to win the state for a third time in a row after winning it in both 2016 and 2020. Trump will win the Tar Heel state's 16 electoral votes by a 2-point margin, expanding from his 1.3% margin against Joe Biden in the last election. Next up in Ohio, Donald Trump is once again the projected winner, winning the Buckeye State's 17 electoral votes. This was an Obama state back in 2012, but Trump has won it in all 3 of the last 3 elections now. Looking at the margin, he'll carry the state by just under 11 points. And then in West Virginia, one of the most conservative states in the country, Donald Trump, the projected winner of its 4 electoral votes. And so now after the second poll closing of the night, Trump expands his lead. He's now at 81 electoral votes. Kamala Harris remains at just 16. It's now 8 p.m. on the East Coast, and we have our largest poll closing of the night. Voting is ending in Alabama, Connecticut, Delaware, the District of Columbia, Florida, Illinois, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Mississippi, Missouri, New Hampshire, New Jersey, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, and Tennessee. A total of 16 states across the country. Starting off in Alabama, Donald Trump is the projected winner of the state's 9 electoral votes, while Connecticut will go to the vice president, who is going to win the state's 7 electoral votes. And then in President Biden's home state of Delaware, Kamala Harris, the projected winner of its 3 electoral votes, but she's only going to win the state by 12 percentage points. And then in the District of Columbia, which has never voted Republican in its 60-year history of participating in presidential elections, Kamala Harris, of course, the projected winner of its 3 electoral votes. In Florida, this is a major victory for Donald Trump. He is the projected winner in the Sunshine State, winning its 30 electoral votes. Trump is going to win Florida for a 3rd time in a row, this time by his largest margin yet. 7 percentage points separate the former president and the vice president. Next up in Illinois, Kamala Harris will carry the state's 19 electoral votes by just under a 15-point margin. She'll also emerge victorious in Maine, winning 3 out of the state's 4 split electoral votes. She'll win the state as a whole by 6%, while Donald Trump will once again win Maine's 2nd congressional district and its 1 electoral vote. In solid blue Maryland, Kamala Harris will come out on top, winning its 10 electoral votes. She'll also win Massachusetts, another safe blue state. Kamala Harris, the projected winner of its 11 electoral votes. In Mississippi, Donald Trump is the projected winner, winning its 6 electoral votes. He'll also carry Missouri and an additional 10 electoral votes. In New Hampshire, Kamala Harris is going to win the state's 4 electoral votes. She'll carry the Granite State by just under 6 points, despite it being decided by less than half a percentage point just 8 years ago. In New Jersey, Kamala Harris is also the projected winner here, winning the state's 14 electoral votes by a 13-point margin. Meanwhile, Trump is going to carry Oklahoma, winning its 7 electoral votes, as well as Pennsylvania. This is the big one. Donald Trump is officially the projected winner in the Keystone State of Pennsylvania, winning its highly valuable 19 electoral votes. This was a must-win state for both campaigns, but ultimately, Trump will come out on top, winning the state that he lost in 2020, but won back in 2016. He's going to carry it by just over 2 percentage points. And then in Rhode Island, Kamala Harris will win the state's 4 electoral votes. And in Tennessee, Trump, the projected winner of 11 additional electoral votes. And so after the largest poll closing of the night, Trump's lead continues to expand. He's now at 174 electoral votes to Harris's 94. It's now 8:30, and polls are closing in just the state of Arkansas. Obviously, Donald Trump is the projected winner. He's going to win Arkansas and its 6 electoral votes. This puts him up now at 180 electoral votes, just 90 away from the presidency. It's now 3 hours from midnight, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Voting will end in the states of Arizona, Colorado, Iowa, Kansas, Louisiana, Michigan, Minnesota, Nebraska, New Mexico, New York, North Dakota, South Dakota, Texas, Wisconsin, and Wyoming. This is the second largest poll closing of the night. Starting in Arizona, Donald Trump is the projected winner. This is a major victory for the former president. He's going to carry the state's 11 electoral votes. Arizona is a state that he lost by 0.3% to Joe Biden in 2020, but today he's on track to win the state by 3 points against the vice president. And so Arizona will flip back into the Trump column. Next up in Colorado, Kamala Harris, the projected winner, winning its 10 electoral votes. She'll defeat Trump here by an 8% margin. In Iowa, Donald Trump will win the state for a 3rd time and its 6 electoral votes, this time by his largest margin yet, 11.2%. In Kansas, Donald Trump, the projected winner, winning its 6 electoral votes. He'll also come out on top in Louisiana, carrying its 8 electoral votes. Trump will also win Michigan and its 15 electoral votes. This is a huge victory for the former president. It's a state that he lost by 3 points to Joe Biden in the last election. It's the most liberal of all the swing states, but Trump will emerge victorious, defeating Kamala Harris by 1.1%, a state he won back in 2016 against Hillary Clinton by a margin of just 0.2. And so a loss in Michigan is a huge blow to the Kamala Harris campaign. However, the vice president is going to win Minnesota and its 10 electoral votes. This is the home state of Governor Tim Walz. Harris will carry the state by just 4 points, despite Joe Biden having won it by 7 back in 2020. And then in Nebraska, Donald Trump is the winner of 4 out of the state's 5 split electoral votes, winning the state at large as well as its 1st and 3rd districts. While the 2nd district is going to go to Kamala Harris, she's going to win its 1 electoral vote by a 2-point margin. In New Mexico, Kamala Harris is once again the winner. She's going to carry the state's 5 electoral votes by 6 percentage points. Harris at 51.5, Trump at 45.3. In New York, Kamala Harris is the winner, although this is by a surprisingly small margin. It's the first time that any Democrat wins the Empire State by less than 15 points since Michael Dukakis back in 1988. Kamala Harris will emerge on top by just under 15, and she'll carry the state's 28 electoral votes. In North Dakota, Donald Trump is, of course, the projected winner, 3 electoral votes. He's also going to win South Dakota and an additional 3 electoral votes. In Texas, the former president, once again, is the projected winner, winning the Lone Star State's 40 electoral votes. This is a huge victory for the former president, a huge electoral prize. He's going to carry the state for a 3rd time in a row, this time by the largest margin yet, defeating Harris here by 10 points. And then in Wisconsin, another big victory for the former president. Donald Trump will win Wisconsin, and it's 10 electoral votes. This is another huge blow for Kamala Harris. Trump is going to win Wisconsin by just under half a percentage point. It is definitely competitive. Tim Walz has definitely given Harris a boost here, but it seems that has not been enough. Donald Trump will win Wisconsin back, a state he won in 2016, but lost in 2020. And then finally, in Wyoming, Donald Trump, the projected winner of its 3 electoral votes. And so at this hour, we can make a major projection. Donald Trump has been elected the 47th president of the United States, defeating Kamala Harris to succeed Joe Biden in the White House on January 20th, 2025. This marks the first time in over a century that a former president is re-elected into the office. After his victories in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, Donald Trump is at 289 electoral votes, well over the 270 threshold. Kamala Harris at just 148. It's a pretty early call, but Trump is the clear winner of this election. It's now 10 p.m. on the East Coast, and voting has officially ended in Montana, Nevada, and Utah. In Montana, Donald Trump is the projected winner, winning the state's 4 electoral votes. He'll also carry Nevada. This is another major victory for Trump. It's a state that no Republican has won since 2004, but Trump is going to carry the silver state in this election, winning its 6 electoral votes by just under a 1-point margin. This is a momentous flip for the former president. And finally, in Utah, Donald Trump once again the projected winner, carrying an additional 6 electoral votes. This will put Trump up at 305 electoral votes. Harris remains at 148. We're now just an hour away from midnight Eastern time. Voting will end out on the West Coast in California, Idaho, Oregon, and Washington. Starting off in California, Kamala Harris is the projected winner in her home state. She served as a senator from California for 4 years before becoming vice president. She'll win the state's 54 electoral votes. While in Idaho, Donald Trump is the projected winner, carrying its 4 electoral votes. And then in Oregon, Kamala Harris will once again emerge victorious, winning the state's 8 electoral votes by a 12-point margin. And finally, in Washington, Kamala Harris will win an additional 12 electoral votes. And so this puts Harris up at 222, Trump now at 309. It's now midnight here on the East Coast, and polls are closing in the state of Hawaii. Of course, Kamala Harris is the projected winner, winning the Aloha State's 4 electoral votes. And finally, an hour after midnight, polls are closing in Alaska, which will officially end voting in the 2024 presidential election. And to no one's surprise, Donald Trump is the winner in Alaska, carrying its 3 electoral votes. This means that with the map all filled in, Trump is the official winner of the 2024 presidential election, carrying 312 electoral votes. Kamala Harris at just 226. This is the worst performance for any Democrat since Michael Dukakis from 1988. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe right now for more content like this leading up to the election in November.